All right. Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm excited to kick off Gitlab monthly release 14.4. A few months ago, we published a 3-year vision video that's available on our website for you all to check out. So to try to check it out, I think it's pretty cool and exciting and it shows you what we're working on. And then we also have our 1-year usability theme, 1-year product investment themes that continue to be the same: application security testing leadership, adoption through usability, and GitLab hosted first focus, including reliability, performance, and availability. We continue to plan ambitiously, and therefore everything we share here is subject to change without notice. With that said, you can browse over to the GitLab product kickoff page and see everything we are working on, and we'd love to engage with you on all of these issues. Today, we'll start off with David DeSanto, our Senior Director of Dev and Sec. He will cover the secure and product sections. Then Kenny, our Senior Director of Ops, will go over the Ops section. Josh, our Director of Enablement, will share all the things that the enablement team is working on. And then David will come back and cover the dev section. With that, take it away, David.
Thank you, Anu. And let's dive in. So to start with the sec section, we'll talk about the secure stage. They're focused primarily on reliability and performance. First here with static analysis, they're focused on ways to improve the performance and reliability of the SAST and secret detection scanners. This work will not finish in this milestone, will be a goal over the next couple of milestones. One thing they are working on within this milestone related to this is the ability to allow pre-filtering as part of the scanning. For those who are familiar with this, the exclude command does not exclude areas from being scanned. It actually only excludes them from the results. While this has the expected outcome in large projects like monorepos, that still means that everything is being scanned. So this effort is not only just to improve the reliability and performance, but also to continue to extend our application security testing leadership. Next, with the dynamic analysis team, they're continuing their work and with the goal of wrapping up this milestone to roll out our Dast on-demand scan scheduler. If you're unfamiliar about this from our previous kickoff calls, at the bottom of your on-demand Dast scan profile, there will be an option to schedule the scan. You can schedule this to run once. As you can see here, it does not repeat, but you can also schedule to run on a frequency schedule. It's a nice improvement to our application security testing offering and providing us additional leadership there. Our composition analysis team is focused primarily on GitLab hosted first, with a focus on reliability and scalability again. Here, they're focused on, as you can see, primarily on infradev issues. The composition analysis team is supporting the managed stage and burning down some of their infradev debt. And that's very exciting to see the cross-stage work. On top of that, they will continue to move items forward within their own area as well. And then to wrap up the secure stage, the Threat Insights team is primarily focused on their restructuring of the secure worker. This is focused on reliability and scalability. However, they're also looking to move the create vulnerability records via the API from behind its feature flag to being a GA feature. For those who remember, this is going to allow you to start creating your own vulnerability records externally from GitLab into the GitLab vulnerability management experience. It's a really great step forward for people who use third parties like HackerOne that do their external scanning, being able to then take those results and put them into the same workflow. And then to wrap up the sec section with the protect stage, the container scanning team or container security team is also supporting manage over the next couple of milestones on scalability and infradev related tasks. However, with the last milestone, we did release an alpha version of cluster image scanning. This is scanning scanning containers that are running within production. I swear I had a lot of caffeine this morning and it's just bad speaking today. This work was released as an alpha functionality behind a feature flag. They're going to continue to push this forward to get to our goal of a GA release of it later this year. And that is everything from the sec section. And with that, over to Kenny.
Awesome, David. Thank you. Super exciting stuff coming in the section. Let me share my screen. So my name is Kenny Johnston. I am the product leader covering the ops section. As a reminder, the ops section is comprised of 5 stages: verify, package, release, configure, and monitor. I put together a little highlights note for the things that I'm excited about for kickoff, and I'm going to go through them one by one. Sas first and reliability is up on the agenda first. So there are a couple of big ticket items that the whole ops section is working on. The first is decomposing Gitlab's database to ensure that we have scalability for it. So one of the things we're going to be doing is decomposing to have to allow for instances to have the CI related tables be decomposed in their own separate database so that it can scale. It's a highly scaled portion of the product. If you think about it, when users start using CI, they continue to create more and more pipelines that have more and more jobs. So the artifacts in the database related to CI continue to expand almost exponentially. So the whole ops section will be participating in work that we'll be doing to decompose that, which should result in higher performance on GitLab.com and your own individual GitLab instances for CI related tasks like creating pipelines and triggering jobs. Next, we have had a significant focus in the ops section on our Sas Performance Indicators. So these are the error budgets for GitLab.com. And actually over the last couple of weeks, 3 of our 4 groups that are participating in this effort have seen their error budgets go to green. And we'll continue to have all other groups focus on improving their error budget so that our users have a more reliable and performant experience when using GitLab.com. The pipeline execution team is actually very heavily focused on fixing infradev and other blocking issues that enable scalability. So I didn't want to go through each one of them, but a lot of focus in this specific group on ensuring that we have a reliable and scalable GitLab.com instance. In our pipeline authoring group, this is the group that works on the pipeline editor, they noticed a timeout that was happening regularly when users were including multiple includes into their GitLab.ci YAML file for defining their pipelines. They're going to be digging into figuring out and adjusting the way that we make calls to include other pipeline definitions in a project's pipeline definition and smooth that out so we don't get 500 errors or response errors when attempting to do so. In our release group, our pages capability, we recently saw some instances where we were overwhelmed with traffic on specific page sites. So we're going to be adding rate limiting to ensure that any high traffic site doesn't necessarily take down or bring down other sites in your pages environment. And then lastly, when it comes to Sas Focus and Reliability, this is a really great example of finding a kind of complex problem that was causing performance and usability issues with GitLab.com. But when you generate a Kubiterra report, which is a testing report for your GitLab CI jobs, when we parsed it and it was a really large file, that was sometimes timing out or causing errors. So we're going to be adjusting the parser that we use so that that is more performant and happens iteratively over the XML, which will mean that users who generate these files that are quite large can use them much more readily. So that's a great example of digging in deep and figuring out a performance improvement that will really help our users on their daily job using GitLab. Next is a focus on adoption through usability. So I wanted to highlight that in the runner group, they continue to focus a lot on usability, specifically for our Kubernetes executor. This has been a really point of priority for the group all year almost. And so they're excited to continue to work on improvements that allow users to easily stand up a fleet of runners based on Kubernetes that is highly scalable. There are a bunch of usability and performance improvements that are included in the work coming up in 14.4 from the runner group. Also wanted to highlight that in our monitor group, we have great incident management and escalation policy and on-call schedule management already available in GitLab. One of the things that the monitor group identified was that for users who weren't necessarily triggering incidents from alerts, it was difficult to manage escalations. And so they'll be working on escalating manually created incidents, including having the ability for responders to signify the status, whether they've acknowledged or responded to that incident. So you can see that here where you can assign an escalation policy after an incident has been created that will immediately start the clock on that escalation, as well as for those who are paged to assign the status that it was triggered or acknowledged or resolved. So that's a great improvement that focuses on what we've learned about how users intended to use the product that will make their lives easier. And then a couple of small ones that I wanted to highlight. One is when viewing our environments page, we got feedback from users that the sorting order was not logical. It was ordering based on the timing of the last commit. Well, when you're looking at an environment, you really want to see the timing of the last deployment. Here's an example where, because there was a rollback commit, the commit happened recently, the commit happened a while ago, but the deployment happened most recently, and it's all the way down at the bottom in the list of deployments for this environment. So we're going to be changing that sort order. It's another example of a minor fix that helps users do their job really easily in GitLab. And then lastly, this one is what I wanted to highlight. It's a design issue, so we're not going to necessarily be adding this MVC in 14.4, but I'm really excited about adding the ability to simulate your pipelines in the pipeline editor. So think about you're editing your pipeline and you want to know what would this pipeline look like if this was for a feature branch or my default branch, or was triggered by a scheduled job, or was part of a merge request. We're going to be working on a workflow so that users can easily simulate their pipeline based on some of those, whether it's the branch or the triggering action that is pretty common within their organization. So that's a great example of improving the usability of the pipeline editor so that you can more rapidly check to make sure that how you've configured your pipeline is how you expect. So those are the highlights that I'm super excited about for 14.4 from the ops section. With that, I'll hand it over to Josh for enablement.
Thanks, Kenny. Those are super exciting. And let me share my screen for the enablement section. And we are focused on 3 themes this release. And the first one, and the key focus for a lot of our teams, are GitLab hosted first, and in particular, Sas reliability. So I've called out 3 here in this particular kickoff. There's a lot of other work happening as well, so please do watch the group kickoff videos on our kickoff page. But to dive into these 3, the first one is a continuation of work we've been doing for some time now. If you've been watching the previous kickoff videos, this might be a bit of a repeat, but effectively, we had 10 years ago when GitLab got started, a relatively small key, an integer, used for our primary key on some tables. And you can see how we were on GitLab.com, at least, approaching the total capacity, around 80% on some of these tables. The good news is that we've been working through and migrating these keys to a much larger key. And so you can see here, it goes from around 80% all the way down to effectively 0, giving us much, much more headroom to continue to grow for a long, long time to come. We have 10 of 13 tables completely completed, and we're hoping to have the rest of the 3 completed this month and wrapped up in 14.4 for our self-managed users. And the best news is that our self-managed admins don't have to worry about anything at all here. It's all completely transparent in the background, and they can rest assured that they can grow their GitLab instances for a long, long, long time to come. So great work from the database team there, hopefully wrapping this up in this release. We also, of course, need to make sure we can continue to scale our Redis instances as GitLab.com also scales as well. We have 2 clusters currently, and we're going to be going through and further partitioning our Redis persistent cluster. So the memory group will be going through and splitting out these session keys, those are the information that tracks who's logged in and for how long, to a new Redis cluster. We were approaching effectively some CPU saturation on the Redis cluster in this case, and so this will give us additional room to continue to grow our Redis clusters by effectively partitioning this work out into additional clusters. So thanks to the memory team, and thanks to the scalability team for also supporting them in this work. Similar to the Postgres work of the primary keys, this will also not be required. And so if you don't need this level of scale for our self-managed users, you won't have to stand up a separate Redis infrastructure. So don't worry about that, but know that if you need it, the support is there. Tacking on to what Kenny mentioned about the decomposition effort for the sharding team, this is the overall sharding group kind of view of the project. And so we're going through in 14.4, and we are working on creating a benchmarking environment so we can compare the performance and overall effectiveness of this particular strategy, ensure things are working. And we're also working with the CI groups and a bunch of other groups to help make sure that their features continue to work in this new dual database environment. So effectively what we're doing here is that in Postgres, you could only write to a single node at a given time, and single nodes can only get so big. And so this effectively puts a natural cap on how many writes you can get into your database at a given time. CI represents about 50% of our total write throughput at any given time. And so we're going to move those to a separate database to give us effectively double the capacity on our database. And so along with the CI team and others, we're working to go through and make sure that this is functional for our users and continue to scale on GitLab.com. And similar to the other two efforts, this is also something that will be largely transparent to a lot of our customers on the self-managed side who don't need this scale. Effectively, we'll have a separate database we'll create and put it there, but keep it in the same database cluster. And so you only need to worry about managing a separate database infrastructure if you actually need this scale. And so again, don't worry about it, but be confident that GitLab can scale with you should you need it, which is great. From there, we can talk about the usability improvements that we are working on. The first one is over in global search. And so right now in global search, in this kind of top search bar here, if you start typing, we'll give you a few options on what scope or how broad you want your search to be performed. What's not entirely clear is that if I just hit enter, I will actually get this first option here. And so we're going ahead and making that much more clear by calling out the scope right there in the search bar. We'll also be dynamically making it bigger. So once you click on the search bar, you'll get more space to view more of the text and have a better user experience. So looking forward to that from the search team. Additionally, the search team is also going to be adding additional filtering options to code search. Code search is one of the most commonly used kind of jobs we've done in our codes in our overall global search functionality. And we want to make it better and easier for users to find things that they're looking for. And so we're working on adding the ability to actually filter based on what language the code file is in. So if you want to find a particular text in, say, for example, TypeScript, you can check a box and be able to search for that, or for example, JavaScript and so on. So pretty exciting there as far as additional filtering options to help users find what they're looking for. Next up, we are also continuing to work on our efforts to improve the overall usability of our geo service. So right now with geosecondaries, they are read-only. And so you have to kind of be mindful of that. If you want to use it for the performance benefits, you have to particularly go there and you're going to get this kind of read-only banner. But we are working to transparently proxy those back to the primary. The overall benefit here is that users will no longer need to know or be aware that any secondaries actually exist. They can simply access the URL. GitLab can then direct them to the best geosecondary for their location, and then they can interact with it as if it was the primary. So make issue comments, change milestones, make commits, that will all work completely transparently. And so users can just use GitLab and their performance will be great. And they'll automatically be taken to the right location for their particular location in the world. So really looking forward to that and removing that cognitive overhead of having to be aware of geos. From there, we're also working on two new market efforts in distribution. We have our new GitLab operator for deploying GitLab on Kubernetes and Openshift. That's becoming available in 14.3 or in just 2 days. And now you want to go through and take that and make it officially Red Hat certified. This will allow it to be enabled to be published in the Red Hat marketplace and make it overall easier to consume. So looking forward to that. And we're also working through on adding additional Fips compliance efforts for our packages. So we had some improvements here in 14.3, and we'll be carrying those forward in 14.4 to hopefully overall have a Fips compliant version of GitLab that users can deploy if they need it. So that's it for the enablement section, and I'll be passing it back over to David to take it from here.
Thank you, Josh, and let me get this reshared. So to wrap up the different sections, we're going to go through the dev section. First with the create stage. Create is focused on GitLab hosted first and reliability. Great example of this is Gitlab. The Gitlab team is focused on handling synchronization issues between the prefect database and the repository file system. We talked a little bit about this on the last call related to split brain conditions. That is what the current focus on is improving that. Over to the source code team. They're currently working on supporting the dependency proxy as part of the workforce component of the product. This is a great example of partnership across group. where the create stage is supporting the package stage on being able to asynchronously download packages and it not impact the user's usability of the product. Over to code review, they're focused on the continued work to improve the merge request experience with a focus on reliability. Here on the screen is the continued work to restructure the merge request MR widget. Here you can see the current layout where the merge button's at the top and details are below it. As part of this work, based off user research, we'll be moving to a more simplified version that's more actionable. And that you can see here is it giving you the current status, actions you need to be taking or not taking, and then of course, then the merge button. And then wrap up the create stage with the editor team. They're focused on GitLab hosted first, as well as reliability and scalability. The first item to highlight for you is the work around rendering very large markdown files within the wiki. Today, that can lead to occasional 500 errors. The goal of this is to significantly improve the performance with a focus on improving the availability of that component. And then finally, they're working on a redesign of the state within the Web IDE. Today, the Web IDE does have some performance impacts. One of the things they want to focus on is decoupling where they can so the performance can be better, as well as being proactive and giving the get status as opposed to it needing to be a reactive pull. Over to the plan stage. Plan stage is focused on infradev and reliability. The first item to highlight for you is improving around full text search, reduce the overall number of 500s that can be generated, as well as improving the performance of the search in general. The one thing I do want to highlight for you is we've talked a lot about plan focused on infradev and performance. Starting this week, they've actually moved to green within their error budgets, showing a 99.75 uptime, so just slightly above the goal. And with these continued improvements, they'll continue to see that get better. The product planning team within plan is continuing to work forward on the work items initiative. Example of this is being able to move things like epics down to the project level. This is in partnership with the manage stage and the work on workspace, which I plan on talking about on the next kickoff call. But if you go to the docs, you can search for workspace and see the project and the current status. They're also kicking off a growth experiment, which I think is rather exciting. They're focused on how we can drive more adoption of the boards. The current implementation looks like this. Today, if I want to create a board, I've got to go to the selector and then go all the way to the bottom to click create board. They're going to do a growth experiment around moving the create new board to a better location, as well as potentially duplicating the ability to create a board. Obviously, those are the things we try to stay away from, and that's why the growth experiment will help us validate that. And then finally, to wrap up with the manage stage. The manage stage is very much focused the entire stage on scalability, reliability, and burning down some infradev tech debt. However, the front-end teams do have a little bit of bandwidth, as most of that is back-end related. A great example of this is an improvement to the DevOps adoption report. This will be introducing a trend over time graph, which you can see here, including a line to allow you to see that overall average. Very exciting to be able to continue to improve the usability of the DevOps adoption report. For the access team, again, very much focused on GitLab hosted first, including performance and availability and reliability. The thing I do want to highlight is their effort on bringing parity between self-managed and GitLab.com or GitLab hosted first. Here, they're working on enabling the ability to check your SSO status on API activity. That'll be a new component introduced. We talked about this a couple months ago when it was a new idea, but this is focused on bringing that parity between the two deployments. It also involves related to being able to update enterprise user status on every sync. Today it was a one-time pull. They're going to be focusing on the ability to continue to synchronize that. So you can do things such as set new project limits, or can create groups within your enterprise user group. And from there, be able to give you that parity on GitLab hosted first as well. And then to wrap up the manage stage, the compliance team is continuing their work related to group level settings. This is allowing us to then inherit settings down that are immutable. An example of this is the work around merge request approvals. The screenshot we talked about last time, but here you can see there's two options that are grayed out and they show a lock. These are things that have been set and are enforced at the group level that must be run at the project level. Just a great step forward on usability, but also improving our application security testing leadership as a theme. Security and compliance go really close together. And as always, I'm very excited to see the managed stage working with Secure and Protect to improve our overall security stance. And with that, that wraps up the dev section, and back over to Anoop.
Thank you, everyone. That was an amazing update. I noticed a few things I want to highlight. First is pre-filtering source files for Sas scans, especially for large repos. That's really helpful. Filtering options on code search. Can't wait for that to help me find exactly what I want. Also excited about the full text search for work by the plan team. I am keenly looking forward to the work item initiative that will help move epics down to project level and much, much more once it starts rolling. Red Hat Open Operator certification, something that we have been working on for a long time. So really great to see it coming close to fruition. Fips 140-3 for heavily regulated users. MR widget usability improvements, DevOps adoption trend reports, amazing work overall. I also noticed a lot of focus on reliability and teams coming together to help the entire product be more reliable. I saw composition analysis, container scanning, and various other secure and dev teams coming together to help reliability of the product as a whole. Focus on error budgets. That means improving reliability, fixing timeouts of various kinds, whether it's in CI linter or Coptura timeouts, or handling large markdown files in wikis. Great work by this database team, whether it's in ops or enablement, including creating a dedicated Redis instance, all the things that help our users scale, and continued and amplified focus on Gitly cluster, including dealing with split brain scenarios. Great update. Looking forward to the release. We'll see you again next month. Bye.